Hey, welcome back to the Spector Creative channel. I'm your host, Scott Toy Guru Neitlich. I've done a lot of videos on this channel about Masters of the Universe. A big part of it's because I worked on Masters of the Universe for 10 years at Mattel. But I didn't work on this line. I did not work on the 2000X line. This line came out actually, it kind of ended right before I started with Mattel. And this was the line that was meant to relaunch Masters to the mass audience, and especially kids. It was a line designed for retail and designed for children to get them to play with toys, just like a lot of us adult collectors played with He-Man when we were kids. Very similar to what the Origins line is kind of doing right now. And, this can be seen both in the figures and in the play sets that had things like, the action chip that let good guys open the castle and bad guys couldn't. And while it was popular with some kids, it was really popular with collectors because we hadn't had He-Man toys in a decade. Now, the line I worked on, Classics, was aimed at the adult collector. It was not sold at retail. That was kind of the key difference. We even put adult collector on package, even though that is totally a marketing thing and has nothing to do with age grade or safety. It's, when you see adult collector or 18 plus or something like that, the toys are always just graded at 4 plus. Adult collector just, it's a marketing gimmick, if you will. But again, not at retail, online, adults. So the line that wasn't retail, that was designed to be a hit with kids, where kids were going to carry the majority of sales, well, not so much, and that's why the line went away. But there were a few SKUs that were designed just for collectors within the greater line, if you will. So, perfect example is Keldor. He was available at Comic-Con and Wizard World, a convention exclusive, and he was basically a new head, well, two new heads. He had his, regular head and then his on fire head, plus he had a new accessory in the acid vial. But otherwise, he was a repaint of Skeletor, so very minimal tooling. Same thing with their other convention exclusive for the 2000X line, which was Shira. This was just Teela's body with a new skirt and front piece, bust piece, and new head and new sword. So, she even came with Teela's shield. So, very minimal tooling, and you got a brand new character, especially, here with Shira and with Keldor, you got kind of a main character, at least for the fans. While Shira never appeared on the show, and actually legally she couldn't, she could be done as a toy. Other examples of figures done in the 2000X line that were aimed just for the collectors included the Toy Fair magazine mail-away figures, and there were two of them. There was Snake Transformation Teela, again, just a straight repaint of Teela, but taken from the actual, content, the show. She was show accurate, that she was changed into a snake by the Serpent's Ring in one episode, I believe episode 35, if memory serves. And Faker. While he never appeared in his blue form in the 2000X show, there were training robots that were meant to actually hint at Faker. One blinks out blue just for a moment in an early episode. And again, a straight repaint, so a perfect Toy Fair magazine exclusive with no tooling. So you basically have two different types of collector figures in the line. The ones with very minimal tooling for conventions, and the ones that are straight repaints that are done for Toy Fair magazine. Either way, you're not spending much on them from a development standpoint. But there is one collector exclusive or collector aimed figure that was a little different from all the rest, and that was Moss Man, who was a mail-away figure that you had to send in proofs of purchase for and receipts. He was a figure designed for a different reason, to clear the clutter. What do I mean by this? Well, one of the terms in the toy industry, when you have too many of one figure at retail, it's called a mix issue or a mix problem, basically meaning that the brand manager created a poor mix and had too much of one character. And in this case, the mix issue had to do with He-Man, or, well, actually less with He-Man and more his alternate identity of Prince Adam. While Prince Adam was popular with collectors, the super skinny version of the hero before he turns into a giant muscle-bound hero was not very popular with the kids. And because it was a line sold at retail, it was dependent on kid and parent and gift giver purchases to succeed. So while Prince Adam had a lot of screen time in the content and, again, popular with collectors because of the nostalgia, because of the, Filmation homage, if you will, it created a lot of clutter at retail and was quickly becoming a mix issue where too many Prince Adams on shelf were preventing other figures from shipping. And Mattel wanted to find a way to clear this out. So what the idea was is if they could come up with a figure that would encourage people to buy more figures off shelf and send in the proof of purchase and the receipts to get a bonus figure, well, that would be a great way to clear out what was holding up more mixes from shipping, because production was done and sitting in warehouses, but it couldn't ship because there was too much product clogging up the pegs. We call them peg warmers as collectors. The industry calls it a mix issue, but it's the same thing. So Mattel called in the cavalry, and by the cavalry they mean the adult collectors. Even though the line was aimed at kids, they knew from the Comic-Con figures like Keldor and Shira that there was a collector fan base. While it might not have been as big as the potential kid fan base, it did exist, and the fact that the convention and Toy Fair magazine figures were selling, or at least sold through, was proof of this. So the idea was to do a figure that would get collectors to come and save the day and save the kid line at retail. And the figure that was turned to was good old Moss Man. Yep, the evergreen-smelling, flocked, fuzzy, nature god Pez dispenser figure was going to hopefully fix the retail problem and get rid of all of these Prince Adams so that more new figures could ship to sell to kids. So why Moss Man? Why in the world was he chosen as the savior that was going to come fix the mix problem or the peg issue? Well, Moss Man has a long history in the brand. He was in the Filmation series more as a kind of a green Sasquatch kind of hippie-esque character, and kind of like nature-loving dude. His voice was kind of weird in the Filmation series. And in the licensor kit, he was also shown as kind of this green Bigfoot-looking character, although a very happy Bigfoot. Maybe he knows Harry and the Hendersons, I don't know. But when he was done in the toy line in the vintage, he was just a straight repaint. He was Beastman. He was literally Beastman that was just flocked green and cast in green plastic. So there was no new tooling. He was, a zero tool, you could call him a repaint figure, kind of like Stinkor, who was just Merman in a new color, with, in the case of Stinkor, Mechanex armor. Now, in the 2000X show, Moss Man had been re-envisioned, just like most of the other characters, and he didn't look like Beastman. He animated-wise. He wasn't just like, the way He-Man and Prince Adam back in Filmation were clearly the same animation, just recolored. In this case, Moss Man was an original animated character who, was not just the hunched-over Beastman repainted green in animation form, the way he could be done as a toy. But because the precedent existed in the vintage line that Moss Man and Beastman shared the same body, the idea was, this would be a cool thing for fans. We could do an homage to the vintage line and release a figure with zero tooling that would help clear out our mix issue. And that's why Moss Man was chosen, because it was assumed that the adult collector who had bought up Keldor and Shira and was showing interest in the line would come out and save the day and get rid of all these Prince Adams, and would buy a Beastman covered in green flock that was called Moss Man, because that's how it was done in the vintage line. Even though it looked nothing like the character from the 2000X line, it just looked like a hunched over Beastman with green flock. So, he got the mail-away treatment in the white box, and he even came with when you ordered it, there was a fine print that noted, even though this figure was shipping, Mattel still, I believe the line they used was, retain the rights to still make a fully tooled Moss Man figure. That, this figure did not, take the place of Moss Man in the main line. This was just kind of a one-off for collectors, and the potential to still do a fully tooled Moss Man was sort of still out there, I guess, to avoid, maybe angry fans saying, wait a minute, like, you already sold us Moss Man. So, while this seemed like a really good idea on paper, and they had a, backdoor strategy to make a regular 2000X Moss Man, Well,
Fate, it seems, is not without a sense of irony.
yeah, good old irony. When you try something and it doesn't quite turn out to be the way you want it, or, two opposites hit each other at the same time. So here you had fans enticed to buy a 2000X Moss Man, which was just Beastman covered in green flock, and they could mail away for him, but they already had Prince Adam. Prince Adam was a figure, while he was a dud with kids, was bought by collectors because of the nostalgia of the Filmation Prince Adam. So here you had collectors who already had Prince Adam being asked to go buy multiple figures at retail to get Moss Man, but the only figure at retail was Prince Adam, and they were the only ones who were buying Prince Adam. So it was kind of a backfire because Prince Adam being the one of the few figures that they really liked, the adult collector. So yeah, you had the same figure over and over again at retail, and here we were being told you had a specific time to buy, and you had to have time, receipts that were date stamped to get the Moss Man, but the only choice in figure was a figure that was A, clogging the pegs because it wasn't hit with kids, but B, most collectors already had because it was a figure that appealed to collectors. So, yeah, irony is a cruel mistress, shall we say. So, fans still did step up and, some bought multiple Prince Adams, some found other figures that were on shelf that they could get, but there were a lot of Prince Adams out there. And the Horsemen did really want to get a real true 2000X Moss Man. In fact, they actually did sculpt one, including accessories. I remember at Mattel I saw an image of their, sort of fully sculpted Moss Man who looked great. That was the head there. So when it came time to doing Moss Man in Classics, this was sort of a redemption, shall we say, because they had no participation in the Beastman flocking exclusive figure. That was something completely done by marketing. So when they did the Classics figure, they definitely wanted him to be more than just Beastman flocked. While at the same time, we did make him Beastman flocked, but that was, because it was a collector line, and we were able to include multiple heads. That was something, the Horsemen were very excited about, was to give him a true original head, and as well as that bandolier, that was something they would have wanted to do for 2000X had they been able to do a real Moss Man. So you can see here a shot of the figure without the flocking with the Beastman head, and you can really see how much he is Beastman. He uses the full Beastman body. But adding the flock to it does make him look, unique and different, much like in the vintage line. Although I have to say, flocking a fully articulated figure is a pain in the butt because it does not look as good as this. This was the Horseman prototype, but you can't flock as close to the joints as you like because it will scrape away. They also really wanted to do his shield, and it was designed for a 2000X figure, which never got released because the line died, and we were finally able to do this shield with the MOTU Minis line. And, Moss Man is back now as one of the main lead characters, not only in the Revelation Netflix show, but he's one of the first four figures in the Masterverse action figure line. And he definitely looks like an original figure. He doesn't look like he could be, Beastman. I mean, I guess with him coming out first, will we get now Beastman being a repaint of Moss Man? That would be hilarious. But hopefully that won't happen since it looks like his skin has a lot of sort of mossy details sculpted in. So that's the story of how we got our 2000X Moss Man, how he was designed as a tool to remove clogged pegs that kind of didn't work because the collectors they were depending on to unclog the pegs already had the one figure that was clogging the pegs. Craziness, right? I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I always comment back. And subscription is always appreciated just because that plays into the YouTube algorithm and tells them to share with more people. And that's kind of the whole point. Sharing fun toy knowledge. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.